got some really interesting hot takes.
Your GoPro reels, they're shit.
So, when it comes to Instagram reels, we know vertical video is king. You want to take up that whole screen, and I think I've got a pretty nifty way to do that. So I'm gonna take you guys along the ride with what I've figured out, try to explain it as best I can.
Not every post you've ever made's got a black box at the bottom and a black box at the top. So let's get rid of those. So then you crop in really far and you don't have any breathing room. So all I can see is the deck of my boat and you don't get to see any of the river. So let's fix that. So now your GoPro clips take up the whole screen instead of just part of it.
First things first, this is my helmet setup. It's a Sweet Rocker. If you know anything about kayaking helmets, Sweet Rocker is the answer. I've got my GoPro on top with a very nifty portrait mount. That's gonna come really in handy here in just a second. Of course, earplugs, bone spurs are not cool. And last but not least, we've got H2 Audio bone conducting headphones. Allow you to listen to music while you're kayaking, which is pretty freaking awesome. Mostly what we're gonna be talking about today is this portrait mount. For vertical video, obviously filming vertically with a camera is gonna be your best option. But when it comes to GoPros specifically, there's a couple of options that you have to get a full screen vertical video as opposed to having the black bars that we all have come to know and hate. Option A is buying a 360 camera. That's your most expensive option. Option B is the ultra wide lens or the max lens mod that GoPro makes. Both of those are going to be domed lenses. Anything curved is going to allow water droplets to stick to it more than the flat lens that GoPro came out with years and years ago. So we get to stick with that. We get less water droplets, save you hundreds of dollars at this point, as well as I think I have a way that kind of stretches things back in a way that's kind of coherent to save your vertical videos for YouTube content at a later date. So first things first, going to be the GoPro app. Just a rough overview. I can show you guys settings real quick. You want to be an 8x7. That's kind of the fundamental principle for all of this, is getting as square of a image as you possibly can using the entire sensor. Got it at 5.3K, 30 frames a second, and then a whole bunch of ProTune color settings that if you don't understand, I'm not here to explain them to you. You can learn how to color grade on your own. But for this, specifically getting to vertical video, we want to be 8x7 with a portrait mounted GoPro, which actually turns into a 7:8 ratio, but that's a technicality. So you go into the app, you have your media. It's basically a square 7:8 ratio, slightly taller than it is wide. We're gonna go to edit, we're gonna go to lenses, and just like you do on your camera or shooting horizontally, you still have a super view option as well as a hyperview option. Both of those are going to give you a lot more field of range than the wide and simply cropping in to fill the entire screen. Again, that's what wide would look like. You have super view as well as hyperview. I think generally speaking, the more river context you have in a clip, the better it's going to be. You're going to click save, share, save to phone, and then whatever quality settings, however crazy you want to get, you can export that to your phone, go straight to the whatever, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you want to put it. So that's probably the easiest method. We're going to get a lot more complicated here. So I am in Final Cut now. Now that you have your Instagram clip, we're going to convert it back to a YouTube clip, coming over into Final Cut. We got a new project. Call it YouTube Edit, 4K, of course. Open project, and we're gonna come in, drag and drop our 7:8 ratio clip, and there's this magical thing over here that we have installed called Andy's Elastic. What this pretty much does is it takes your 7:8, your 8x7 clips. Traditionally it's for the 8x7, but we have a 7:8, so we're gonna do a little bit of magic, make it work. And what this does is essentially what your GoPro does in camera. It's taking a square-ish aspect ratio, the native camera aspect ratio, and stretching it into what you know as a super view or a hyper view, depending on how far you push it. So that being said, we can grab that effect, drag and drop over here, which is going to do a little bit of squishing. And then we're going to come and take our transform on our X scale, stretch this guy out to the width of the frame, right about here. And then also, technically, because we're shooting 7x8 instead of 8x7, I like to stretch it vertically just a hair, probably 120-ish is probably about the ballpark of what's normal. It ends up cutting my helmet out, but we don't like that anyways. Just kind of helps with some of the distortion and the aspect ratio. You're technically cropping a little bit, and technically it's 3K this way instead of 4K the other way. But again, we're saving what's ideal for Instagram to be able to put on YouTube. If you wanted to start with YouTube and work vice versa, you don't get as good as an Instagram clip. So we're gonna do that. There's plenty of things in here you guys can play with as far as what's protected and how you stretch the corners versus protecting the middle. I actually find that give or take about the width of the boat, if a little bit narrower is probably ideal. It's honestly good out of the box, and you don't have to do much to it. So we'll get rid of our yellow box here, and we have something. Oh, I'm in the window. All right. So we'll get rid of our yellow box, come over to our timeline, and we have something that moderately looks like a hyperview clip straight out of camera, but from a vertically filmed video that can now be used for YouTube. The contrary to that is if you don't want to use the GoPro app, there is an even more complicated way that you can tweak this back to Instagram content, but it gives you a little more fine tuning. Same concept, new project in a vertical video, keep it 4K, and same clip down here. The kicker here is that Andy's elastic is natively designed to work converting a square frame or a 7x8 frame to a 16x9 frame, and since we're going to a 9x16 frame, you have to rotate the filter, and I haven't found a great way to do it, but this is probably the best way so far. So rather than putting our elastics on the clip itself, we're gonna put it on an adjustment layer. Again, it can be that same adjustment layer you use for color correction. I'm gonna take our elastics, put it on there. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that, rotate it 90 degrees, and that rotates everything that's under it. They're layers, they're stacked on top of each other. And then we're gonna take the layer underneath, which is our video clip. We're gonna rotate it 270 to counteract the rotation of the filter. We're also gonna do the same stretch that we did earlier, except this time it's going to be our y-axis instead of our x. Well, it also has to be on the adjustment layer. We're moving the whole thing. It's gonna be on our y, which we rotated 90 degrees. I said it was complicated. So we're still x-axis here. We can stretch that out to the height of the clip. Probably need some more protected area here, as well as bring it down just a little bit, kind of keep the boat looking moderately normal. And again, I find that a little bit of stretching to trim off the excess. Again, we've rotated the camera, so we have some excess to kind of make things look a little more normal here as well. And we've got something quite similar with a little less paddle distortion, in my opinion, than hyperview out of the GoPro app to get a vertical video for Instagram straight out of camera in Final Cut Pro. So again, we have our vertical Instagram clip that we have here, as well as our 16x9. That's a different clip. Our 16x9 that we made earlier, both out of the same GoPro clip. Both are usable in my opinion. There's some perks and some drawbacks to doing it either way. But again, we're trying to prioritize whether we want really, really good Instagram reels with YouTube footage that's acceptable, or we want killer YouTube footage with some mediocre Instagram reels. I honestly find that this is a lot better. I think the YouTube saved footage from shooting portrait mode and then stretched out this way, I think the YouTube footage is a lot more acceptable than the contrary of the vertical portrait video being salvaged from widescreen. I think that's much more acceptable to do it this way, as well as just generally speaking, I think super view looks better than hyperview for kayaking. So you can stretch your hyperview for vertical video or your super view if you prefer, because you have more vertical field of view to bring in the sides a little bit more and give you more room, as well as because you're cropping in, and in this case you're actually losing sensor width by vertical mounting your camera. That generally allows you to get away with that little bit of crop that you would otherwise have in a super view-esque format. I realize that's really complicated and that probably goes over a lot of people's heads, but generally speaking, try it. I think it looks good enough for most people, for most YouTube edits. We're not doing Hollywood cinema here, but the main takeaways: we're going to shoot vertically mounted cameras, portrait mounted cameras. You can convert that to a hyperview in camera without having to crop, so you get all of your video data. And then there is a way to save it in Final Cut Pro. Andy's Elastics is also available for DaVinci, Premiere, and I believe Motion and After Effects as well. So it's universal across the board. There's also plenty of tutorials of how to use Andy's Elastics as well. And ultimately you get to save your footage, you get better reels, you get arguably the same YouTube content, and I think it's a game changer. So try it, let me know what you think. If you have a comment for feedback, you've tried it, you love it, hate it, whatever it is, drop me a comment, let me know. And together we'll produce better kayaking footage. So thanks for watching, guys. Check out anything else I've ever put up, and we'll see you on the river.